What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Run Pure Sports FireKeepers Casino 400 NASCAR DFS show. I'm your host, Mangone. I am back with the usual guy, our NASCAR expert, PGA guy too. He does it all. NBA as well. Had a great call with Tatum the other day when he was super low owned. It's Mr. Coop. How's it going over there, my man?
Doing well, man. Doing well. How about yourself?
Pretty good. We're just talking like there's a lot of sports going on, a little too many at once, but I'm still loving it, right? Yeah. It's still fun. Like there's nothing better than being able to just like wake up and after a couple hours, you got all the games are on, right? You got MLB games during the day, you got NBA, there's golf going on. I mean, it's an awesome time. The weekends are fun too. We got MMA, NASCAR, and then all the sports going at once. So it's a lot of fun. And Sunday Night Baseball's back. I mean, it's nonstop, Coop. So it's definitely a good time. It makes up for those times where it was a little light going on there in March, April, and May. But I'm definitely excited and enjoying it.
More than makes up for it, man. I haven't looked at the schedule, man, but baseball doesn't overlap football any, does it?
Definitely does. Football starts in September. It's a 60-day season. So baseball will go. I know the last day of basketball is like October 10th or 12th for like the finals, like the NBA finals. That's when that'll be over for sure. But things die down for basketball a bit on I think it's the 14th of August because we get that's when the playoffs start up, and the first round's still a little pretty crazy, but once you get to like round 2 and 3, it slows down a bit for sure.
Yeah, that first maybe 2 weeks of football, it'll be interesting to see what the GPP contests are like for all these other sports because football's the cash cow, and it could really hurt these other ones.
I think it'll still be okay. You might see some bad prize pools on NBA Sundays, but your NASCAR will go down a bit, Coop, for sure.
Oh, but, definitely. And golf.
But golf will take a small hit too. But
baseball will take a hit, and then if hockey's still around, it'll probably be non-existent.
Oh man, don't say that to Matty Ice. He'll be upset. But speaking of Matty Ice, he'll be grinding all weekend, right, Coop? We don't just have NASCAR on Sunday, right? What else do we got this weekend for the people?
Oh, I think there's like 2 truck races and an Xfinity race, or at least 1 truck race and 1 Xfinity race. I think it's just 1 of each, actually. One's 2 truck races tonight. Yeah,
I know there's definitely a truck race tonight. So that'll be awesome if you guys, are able, if you're watching this ahead of time and you're able to, jump on that at the Run Pure Sports playbook, go check that out. Maddie's core plays as well. But we got to dive into this NASCAR slate. Again, it's the FireKeepers Casino 400 with these goofy names as NASCAR always does, Coop. And we're going to dive in and we're going to talk about this race. Before we do that, Coop, give me like a breakdown of the track, right? Like, what am I looking for?
Before we do that, man, I want to talk NASCAR in general. A lot of news this week that came out. So from a driver's perspective, Brad Keselowski has re-upped with Penske, and NASCAR is a little different than these other sports because the other sports, you see drivers transition from team to team or players from team to team after the season ends, whereas in NASCAR, it happens during the season, and it usually happens right around now. So it can have some impact on drivers, but Keselowski has re-upped with Penske. And then earlier in the week, the number 95 team, Levine Racing, which is a subsidiary of Joe Gibbs, decided to sell the team, and they will no longer be racing next year. Who they sold it to is completely unknown right now, but the rumor has it it's Spire Motorsports, which stinks because Spire Motorsports is a field filler team. And if that's what happens, then we just have another, field filler versus a potentially strong car. But Christopher Bell will be taking over. He was in that 95, and he'll be taking over Eric Jones' ride next year. Eric Jones got the axe from Joe Gibbs, which wasn't a surprise. He's had a couple years, and he's been up and down. And he has a lot of talent. And hopefully, with the new team he goes with, it's a better mix for him. It could have just been the mix that didn't work for him. Who knows? But we have that. which leaves Jimmy Johnson's ride open next year. And rumors around that are flying that Hendrick might just go to 3 teams and not replace that team. So we'll have to wait and see. But next couple of weeks we should hear more on what's going to happen. And then as far as just general news, there's 2 things that NASCAR implemented this week. One, which I'm really not going to touch on, is in the past recent weeks we've been doing starting lineups by draws since there's no qualifying, and they will be removing that at the Daytona Road Course event, and they have some type of formula that determines where you're going to start, and it involves your points position for the year, your finishing position for the last race, and then how many fastest laps you accumulated. So I'm not worried about it until next week. And then the bigger thing is, if you remember back at the All-Star race, they implemented the cone rule, where when you come out of the pit, everybody goes single file, and then you either pick inside or outside. And you can line up on the inside or the outside, consecutively. You'll be losing position. But if that's the preferred line, that's where drivers will go. So that will actually start this weekend. So that could jump some stuff up a little bit. Track position is important here, but the groove really isn't one or the other being better. So I don't think it'll have too much impact, but in certain races, it will definitely impact some.
All right, Coop, you kind of broke my heart there. My boy Eric Jones lost his ride. What's going to happen to him?
Is he ride, man.
Is he not racing for the rest of the year, or does he just ride this thing out? What happens?
He races for the rest of the year. But these sponsors have so much money tied up into these teams, and the sponsors really have a big dictation on who they're going to be driving for. So with him being a free agent, the pressure is really on him to perform, to show that he can be more consistent. He has been good. His problem is consistency. And, the big rumor is he'll take the 48, car, but, we'll see. He'll end up somewhere. It could be Xfinity for all who knows. But if he does get down to the Xfinity, I think he'll just dominate down there because he is heads and toes above the other drivers talent-wise. So we'll have to wait and see what happens to him. But I think he's going to, really step it up, which, could be more aggressive driving from him. And, could be good or bad for him because, he's all over the place as far as consistency goes.
All right, well, we'll have to track that. Nothing's going to keep my boy down, Coop. He'll be back. He'll find a way. Here's one question I'll ask you for next year. Are we going to get Kyle Larson back? I know he made those comments. Is he somehow going to bounce into a car out of nowhere? He's a good driver from what I remember. So
yeah, again, I think next year possibly. I think maybe 2 years more likely, because again, sponsorship is so big in this, and do the sponsors want to be associated with them is the big thing, and how much will it drag on. And that's why I think if you let it die down more and more, people will forget about it. Won't be as against him being against that sponsor or whatever you want to consider it. So we'll have to wait and see with him. But there are rumors that he could take that 48 car. So we'll have to wait and see. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's not next year. That's why I say it's 50-50 at best.
Yeah, it could take time, but everyone loves a good comeback, Coop. And I'm coming back to NASCAR this week, and I'm gonna take everything down, Coop. So watch out.
It's interesting that you mentioned Kyle Larson, because I was going to speak about him later.
Oh, okay. We'll get, when we get to that, definitely mention it and bring it up. But yeah, let's dive in. Let's talk about it, Coop, because I think this race could be good. Talk about the track though, right? Like, is it a mile and a half? Like, because I've been watching these races a little bit, and been kind of tracking it more during the quarantine, so I kind of have an idea. So when you mention like mile and a half track, I kind of know who to look at. But who's here on this one? What kind of track are we looking at?
Well, this one's a 2 mile track, which is similar to the mile and a halves, just a little bit longer. And the only other one on the circuit is Fontana. So it's all about speed, and more speed this week. This track traditionally is low attrition, low cautions, very few accidents. And when, people do fall out, it's more mechanical than because of accidents. So from that perspective, it's safer to go higher ownership wise on drivers, because you're not going to see as many accidents or drivers drop out of the race as what you've seen, in the past couple weeks. It's all about speed. And traditionally, if you look at it, Ford has dominated this race. I was looking at the manufacturer odds last night, and Ford is a minus 108. Then you have Toyota, I think, was plus 185, and Chevrolet was like plus 325. So that's a huge bank on Ford. And, again, they've been dominant. They've led the most laps. If you look at winners here, it's more kind of spread out, where Toyota and Chevrolet have won some races here, but they haven't been dominant. It's been more due to strategy at the end of the races. So you'll have to wait and see too, because I want to dig more into this competition caution. The stages are 40, 45, and 71 laps. And I think, the 40 is going to be right on the borderline of being able to make that first stage with no gas. And tires aren't huge here. So when they do pit, you could see some drivers, maybe they only take a splash and go if they are that close. Maybe they just take 2 tires. But I would expect very few to take 4 tires on that competition caution at the very beginning. Because you do want to stay up front. Traditionally, it's a 200 race lap. This one is 156. So the Dominator points are down a little bit. And then the other thing that really stuck out to me when I was doing some research is fastest laps. They are all over the board, which is surprising. If you look at last year, Joey Logano led 163 laps, I believe, in the first race. And it's the same package that we're running this year. So he only had 7 fastest laps. And when you see a driver dominate typically like that, they have a lot of fastest laps. That wasn't the case. And then if you look at the other race that they had, because they have 2 here annually, there was like 3 or 4 drivers that led anywhere from 30 to 60 laps. And if you look at their fastest laps, there were drivers that led no laps or very few laps that had as many fastest laps as they did. So fastest laps is kind of all over the place here, which makes it much more difficult because you can usually bank on them being from the lap leaders. So that's something I got to dig into a little bit more. And I do want to double check with another site, because to make sure that the site I was looking at, the numbers aren't incorrect, because it was just eye popping that you would see something like that.
All right. Well, yeah, definitely. You can double check that, and just put that in the playbook. On the Discord too. We have tons of ways for people to access that type of information. It's absolutely awesome. Let's dive in though. Let's talk about this race, Coop. Let's kind of dive in, because I want to get all the winners, man. I want to know who's going to win this race. And at the top, we got Joey Logano. We got Denny Hamlin. We got Kevin Harvick. I mean, those are 3 really strong drivers. What do we do here, Coop? Hamlin's been good. Harvick, I think you're probably leaning one of those 2 as the top one. Would you agree?
Yeah. For me, I got to stick with Ford and Logano and Harvick. You look at the laps led here, and they've been dominated by Ford. And Denny Hamlin does have some wins here, but he kind of used strategy to get into those. He wasn't necessarily the dominant car. So for me, it's Logano and Harvick. And, I always talk about you have to take stands. And my stand will be against Denny Hamlin. Nothing against him if you want to play him. But I think, there's all kinds of Fords and Chevys up front. And I think they're going to, just be more dominant at the beginning than what a Hamlin is. And if he falls back, I think it'll be tougher to get back up front for him. The other piece to this is, do you want to play this as a 1 dominator race or a 2 dominator race? I don't think you want to go 3, but if you do, it would be very few lineups that I would go that way, because like I said, there's fewer laps here. And last year, we've seen, a 1 dominator, take it down the first race. And in the second race, it was 3 drivers who split those laps. And with the less laps, I would probably gear more towards 2 than 3. So for me, and I like Logano. He's been very good here. And I also like Harvick, who's been, probably the best here. So I don't have a problem playing either one of them together too, because I could see both of them being the cars that lead the most laps.
All right. Any final thoughts in this range, Coop, or do you want to head on over to the next one?
No, we can move on.
All right, let's head over to the next range. We got Almirola. He's been pretty solid. Keselowski, man. I'm always on with like the keg guys, sweating some of the games with them, and they call Keselowski the rat because he always finds his way to the top, man. He's always finding his way around. So we got him. He's always at the top, man. Literally every single race. It's incredible how good he's been. Alex Bowman, my boy. I wonder if he's fast enough on these 2-mile tracks. Kyle Busch, and we'll put Chase the Kid Elliott in there. So Almirola, Keselowski, Bowman, Kyle Busch, and Chase Elliott. How are you sorting these guys out, Coop?
We'll go back and start with Kyle Busch. Don't like him this week. He hasn't been great here. He's been solid. He has some wins. But again, he's in a Toyota, and Toyota just hasn't showed the speed on these bigger tracks for me this year. So I'm going to be going back away from Kyle Busch. Alex Bowman's another one. If you want to play him, I think he's going to be in a very, very low GPP play and could sneak in there. But the thing with Bowman is he hasn't shown that speed that he showed earlier once racing returned. And his fastest laps and laps led haven't been there. And his finishes haven't really, I don't think he's finished better than 8th. Actually, in any of them races, maybe 6th where he starts. His price is still up there. He's got to get up there and get some fastest laps. So Alex Bowman for me is another fade. Keselowski in a Ford, and he's done decent here, but he doesn't have any wins, which scares me because that first one's always going to be there, and he wants this one bad. He probably wants this one more than any other race that he hasn't won because it's been Michigan, and Michigan's all about Ford. So he's going to be extra motivated from that perspective. Plus, he's got the extension, so things are off of him pressure wise in that perspective. So I don't like playing him, for the same reasons that y'all talk about on the keg all the time. Because, on paper, he doesn't look that great, but he just ends up finding a way to get there. So he's somebody I'll probably have a little bit of exposure to, but not much. And then Almirola, I think, is a very good GBP play. I think the price will keep people off of him because 9,100 is quite a bit for Almirola. His starting position of 5th or 4th isn't that great. He's got to get up there, but I think he can get up there. And I like playing him with Harvick, and I like playing him with Logano. So for me, it's Almirola, and then maybe a little bit of Kez. But the other piece here too is we've seen in previous Michigan races where drivers who start in the top 4 lead the majority of the laps. There have been some drivers starting outside of that top 4 that get some dominator points from laps led, but it's not very many.
All right, Coop, I just noticed we have 2 races this weekend. I thought this was the Sunday race. We have a Saturday and a Sunday race. So,
yeah. So everything we're talking about is geared towards Saturday because Sunday will be different. Because they'll take the top 20 and invert them. And then, if you finish 21st, that's where you start. You finish 35th, that's where you start. So, but the top 20 will be inverted.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to mention that for the people because you know, I didn't realize it, and as you can tell, I'm not the NASCAR expert here. It's Coop. You know, breaking news if you haven't found out by now while watching the show. But Coop, let's go to the next range. That just threw me for a loop because I was confused while I was shifting through things. I was like, why are there two races? But we got Clint Boyer, we got Kurt Busch, we got Ryan Blaney, who I always love. Martin Truex, and we'll throw Ryan Newman in this range as well. I think it's clear, right? Blaney and Truex are the two best in this range, but you tell me.
Yeah, you would be right. And from that perspective, Chase Elliott, I think, also starts 8th. You know, he hasn't been great here. He's been solid, but again, starting outside of that, you know, top 5 and with his results, if he was in a Ford, I'd probably be more excited about it, but in a Chevy, a little less. So he's probably somebody that I'll be passing on. Ryan Blaney is the one from this group of drivers that you mentioned that I have the most interest in. You know, he's been really fast and really good on the 1.5 miles. He's just had bad luck. And, you know, that's another thing. The drivers that have had bad luck, I'm more apt to play them this week than most weeks because, you know, the attrition is low. It's going to be hard to get into an accident. And then, you know, if you have mechanical problems, nobody can predict them. And it's just going to be what it is. But Ryan Blaney is the one, you know, that I am excited about back in there and who I could see coming from the back end and leading some laps. Truex, I don't know. I think this is another place where I'm going to take a stand and not play Truex. The price is up there, and he's got to get some dominator points in order to pay off. And he's been up and down as far as 1.5 miles. And here recently, he's been better. So I think people are going to go to that. And I think he's going to have some decent ownership because he's starting 12th and he can get up there and they can see him as somebody who can lead laps. But, you know, it's a gamble. I can't blame you for playing Truex. But it's just a stand that I got to take because you got to get edges somewhere in order to succeed with the ownerships that you have on all these drivers. And then Ryan Newman, you know, again, low-owned GPP play. If you want to take some chances, I don't want to take them personally because I think there's drivers starting behind him that are going to pass him. And I think, you know, an 18th to 22nd place finish is where I see Newman. So he's a fade for me.
All right. Yeah. You know, I like, you know, Blaney's the guy I can always get behind, Coop. So whenever you mention him, you know, I get excited. He's a fast driver. But yeah, I mean, all in all, like that range isn't the greatest, I'd say. You know, I think you're just taking some shots here and there. Hopefully this next range is a little better. And we got Tyler Reddick, we got Matt DiBenedetto, we got Cole Custer, Jimmy Johnson, Austin Dillon, and then William Byron. And like my first thought in this range is kind of like we talked about, I think the last show I did with you, it's like some of these guys, they just feel like they're a little too high up there, right? That's the worry. I think Byron's got the best spot. Is that your favorite guy in this range, Coop?
No, he's not my favorite guy in this range. I'll have some Byron, but he's been stronger here recently. I think he needs a 10th to pay off, which is something that he can achieve. So I'll definitely have some. I won't have a lot. But there's two drivers that stick out for me in this range. And, you know, we've talked about all year, and this is where Kyle Larson comes in. Where Kyle Larson does well at tracks, you play Tyler Reddick. And Tyler Reddick has been dominant on the 1.5 miles. And if you look at Kyle Larson, he's won here 3 times. And he wasn't necessarily dominant those 3 times, but he found a way to get there at the end and ended up winning. And that really makes me want to get onto Reddick because, you know, they're mirror when it comes to driving style. And I think Reddick is going to be a lower owned, great GPP play. The price isn't horrible, but he only needs to gain 3 or 4 spots in order to pay off. And I think he's going to be fairly low owned because of that. Now, I'm not going to go out and, you know, play 50, 60% of them, but I definitely want to be double. If he's 15%, I want to be 30, 35%, in that ballpark. But, he's been very good here recently. He's got 2 back-to-back top 10s, I believe. And I think, the next guy, Cole Custer, who's cheaper and starts farther behind him, will take some ownership away from him. And I do like Custer too, because he's been very strong here recently. So I don't know if a lot of people don't think Cole Custer's going to be super chalky by any means because of the starting position. If it was, 20th or beyond, and he was, at that price, definitely. But I think the 16th will put more people off of him than what the price will. He only has to gain a couple positions, and he's been very good recently. So I'll have some Cole Custer too. And then Matty D is another driver that I'm pretty high on. He's in a Ford, and he's had speed. And we all know he's had some issues getting caught up in other people's problems and some of his own, which has hurt his results. But the car has been solid all year. So I do have interest in Matty D. And I think the price really keeps people off of him because $8,400 is a steep price for him. But I like him as a nice GPP pivot. And I don't typically like playing, 14th, like 15th and 16th together. And I wouldn't play all 3 of these drivers together. But playing 2 of Cole Custer, DiBenedetto, and Reddick, I do like, because I do think they can get up there and get in the top 10 and hit that value. And I think it's going to be done at lower ownership. And then the other driver in this section is Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson is just too high priced for his results and what he's been getting here recently. He's got to get like 8th place to pay off. And that's not going to, happen based upon his results. Again, he falls into that bad luck driver. And then what I said, if just bad luck, I'm more apt to take them this week because the attrition isn't bad. But 8th place is just too much for me, for Jimmy Johnson. I think, he's going to be a low-owned GPP play if you want to take some chances. But I would rather put my, picks on the 3 drivers that we discussed earlier.
Yep. Death, taxes, and Coop liking Cole Custer. That's all I got from that segment. You love your boy.
I like Tyler Reddick a lot. I like Reddick a lot better this week than Custer. Custer would be right behind him, though.
That's fair. I do like that point you brought up about Larson, trying to find that correlation too. I think that was a good mention. Mm-hmm. Let's move on to the next range here. We got Matt Kenseth, our boy Mikey's guy, Michael McDowell. We got Chris Buescher, Eric Jones, Bubba Wallace, Quinn Huff, and we'll throw JJ Yeley in there as well. This range is not strong, Coop. I mean, it just seems like Eric Jones is too pricey. Like, I think Chris Buescher's probably maybe the best guy here in this range because he's a value play. I feel like we haven't had a ton of value. So what do you think?
Well, we can cross off Yaley and Huff right away because they start too far up. And then we'll go to Buescher since you brought him up. I think Buescher is a very, very good low-owned GPP driver. He hasn't had very good success because of a lot of accidents that he's either created or he's been caught up in or issues that have been around him. And he has the speed in that car to get up to a 17th place finish. It's what he needs in order to make value. People haven't been playing him because of his results. And they're not going to be playing him this week. And I think he's an excellent GPP pivot down here. And, if you really play Buescher with, let's say, a Cole Custer, you can pretty much play anybody else you want near the top. And I think that's a nice combination between the two. And, I like playing him with Reddick also. So definitely have some Buescher. I won't go crazy, but I don't see him being more than, 10, 12, 13% owned So, I like to be in that 20 to 25% range. I think if you go 30 and on above, you're, taking some risk because, again, there is risk involved with it. But on paper, he's a very good GPP play. And then Matt Kinsey is a no for me. He's got to get way too high, I think, at 12th place in order to make value. He hasn't been good on the 1.5 mile plus tracks and showing little speed. The good results that he has had has been on the flat track. So Kinsey is a no for me. And then there's, I think, one other driver. Who am I missing in there?
Mcdowell or Eric Jones? I don't think you talked about Jones yet.
Yeah, McDowell, he starts too far up. He would be a great GPP play if you want to go there. But for me, I'm going to take my chances that he doesn't, finish 17th or 18th, and then he finishes, where he starts, or 23rd or 24th. He is better on these 1.5 mile to 2 mile tracks. So I could, see you playing him as a GPP lower owned driver, but I'm going to stay away from him. And then Eric Jones, I think, is a very good pick also. He's got to finish 13th in order to pay off, which isn't very much to ask of him. It's just a matter of, which Eric Jones, are you going to get? And it's not really his driving and the speed that's hurt him. It's just been, mechanical issues pop up here, or a flat tire here, or whatever. And, those things are less likely to happen this week. So I'll definitely have some Jones. And if he's going to be, lower owned, I definitely want to be on top of that, because 13th place is very attainable for him.
Yeah, I will say, Coop, one thing, and I don't know if this is true. I remember when I was digging into the stats, one night I just dug into the stats during quarantine, was looking at something. It felt like Jones and Reddick had a lot of same correlation, like where Reddick did well, Jones did pretty well. So if you're thinking Reddick could do well here because of Larson, maybe that could be good for Jones as well.
The only place where they don't correlate well is Jones is a much better flat track driver than what Reddick is. But, they both like to, drive these 1.5 mile plus tracks. And, especially when tire wear is involved, they're really good. So tire wear isn't involved this week. It's more pure speed. And, I'm not going to jump off of them because of the lack of tire wear, because they're both definitely capable of getting to where they need to be to pay off.
All right. One last thing I want to mention. Did you mention Bubba Wallace, or did I miss that one? Was Bubba Wallace?
No, I missed it. You mentioned him. Bubba is another one who's going to be a good low-owned GPP play. I'm not going to go into Bubba because his recent results haven't been very good at all. He doesn't have the momentum that he had earlier this year when he was finishing, in the top 15. He very well easily could finish, I think 17th or 18th is where he needs to be to pay off, because the price on him has come down considerably to what it was earlier this year when he was in the mid 7s. So I'm not going to take my chance with him, but I don't blame you if you do.
All right, let's go over to the next range of drivers. We got Brennan Poole, James Davison, Christopher Bell in the 20 range. We got John H. Nemechek, and we got Ricky Stenhouse. So what's going on with this range, Coop? I mean, we don't have a lot of good drivers down here in this range right now. So I feel like we're lacking some value, I'd say, in this back end 25 to 40 range this week.
It's coming. We just haven't got there yet. But, I've done most of the playbook. I still got to finish some of it. And the first thing that stuck out to me was the point differential drivers who I start, 20th on. I don't like nearly as much as the drivers who I want to have good finishing positions from, meaning, drivers who start 13th to 19th. So for me in this section, Ricky Stenhouse is the safest play by far, who has the best upside. He's been very good on the 1.5 mile plus tracks. And he was in the winning lineup last week. He's been in the winning lineup several times this year. So I'll have some Ricky. How much? Yet to be determined. It's a track, like I've mentioned multiple times, low attrition, so it's going to favor him, and he has speed. He needs to get up to 22nd, I believe, in order to make value. So I think that's much, something that he can easily attain. Nemechek, like I said last week, looked good on paper. He looks good on paper again this week, with the starting position, though, is, I think 5 positions better this week than what it was last week. And he didn't do well last week at all. He has that ability to get up there. I think he's going to be lower owned. He is risky because he's got to get up to 20th, which is asking a lot for him, but it's something that he is very capable of. I want to be probably around field ownership on Nemechek. And then Christopher Bell, I think he's got to get 13th in order to pay off. We've seen this situation basically every week with Christopher Bell, where his price is around 10K and he starts 29th to 35th. And some weeks it pays off, some weeks it doesn't pay off. So, he's kind of like Jones is, he's hit and miss. And which one's going to show up is hard to tell. But I definitely have some, probably field ownership, maybe a little bit over. And I like actually playing him with Eric Jones because of the price on both of them. I think people will tend to stay away from, I think Jones is 86, 88, somewhere in that ballpark, and Bell is 9,900. But, with all the value and the pricing that we have here this week, I think it's very easy to play the two of them together and still have a very good team. And I think the two of them together will be unique.
All right. Let's talk about this last range of drivers. We got Garrett Smith, Ty Dillon, Ryan Preece, Corey LaJoie, Daniel Suarez, Timmy Hill, and Joey Gase. Now, Coop, you said there's value down here, and yeah, there's value, but it doesn't feel like good value. So is this good value? I mean, do you like Ty Dillon? Do you like, a Ryan Preece, a Corey LaJoie, or Daniel Suarez? I think those are the main 4 we're going to be talking about here, correct?
Yeah, Ty Dillon, Ryan Preece, Corey LaJoie, and Daniel Suarez. It's like DK just said, I don't know what to do with them, so I'm just going to put them all within $100 to $200 of each other. And they're all starting, within a spot or 2 of each other. And we're going to let you decide which one to choose from. All 4 of them have the ability to finish in the top 20. Will all 4 of them finish in the top 20? Heck no. Will one of them finish in the top 20? Possibly and probably. Will 2 of them? That's where it gets risky. But I think you definitely have to have pieces of all 4 of these drivers because they definitely can get to that top 20. And, I think being contrarian would be playing 2 of them together. It's risky because, again, they got to get up there in order to make that value. But, they've shown that they can. And Ty would be my favorite. He does best on tracks that require these speeds, and he's had some top 20s here. He was solid this in California, the other 2-mile track earlier this year, and he's been really solid here recently if you look at his results. And then Ryan Preece, another one. People will stay away from him because of his results. He finally broke through and had a very good result last week. But prior to that, he's been caught up in all kinds of accidents, and he can definitely get there too. Corey LaJoie, I'll go back to as long as it's a 1.5 mile or longer track because the car has speed, and he does his best on these tracks. And I think of the 4, he's going to be the lowest owned. And then Suarez, as long as DK keeps his price around 6K, he's playable. If it gets, much higher, that becomes borderline questionable. But again, if you look at the last, I think 6 races, he's paid off based upon his price in all 6 of those races. He's got 29 points at minimum. You need 30 points, so he's right on the borderline. So he can definitely get there too. So, this is where it makes it really interesting is, how far deep do you go into these drivers and which one do you go the deepest into? And, from a GPP perspective, Corey LaJoie is going to be the lower owned. So he's the one that I want to have, the highest over the weight on. And then I think Priest would be the next one who's going to be lower owned. And I want to have, a lot of him too, as far as being over the weight. And then Ty Dillon and Suarez, I want to be more even to the field.
All right. Yeah, I mean, that'll about do it for us. That's the Firehouse Casino 400 NASCAR DFS show. Before we get on out of here, Coop, though, we got to pick some winners. So, give me your winner of the race.
I think we go back to Eric Almirola. I like him. He's had a lot of speed. He has a tendency to get up there very quickly. And I think if he can get up there very quickly and contend, I like Almirola to surprise this week.
All right. Before I pick my winner, Coop, I'm asking one question too. What do we do with the pits, right? Are there good pit stops for these guys? Anyone in a good pit position for this race?
Keselowski's going to be in a good pit position because he won last week. And then I know Joey Logano has a good pit position, and I think Truex has a good pit position. And, I'm not putting too much onto pit road this week because it is a bigger track. And, there's more space on there. You don't see a lot of pit stops during this race because the cautions are low. So it really comes down to it is when you do pit, your team has to perform, because if you make that one mistake, hint, Chase Elliott, it could kill you.
Okay, well, listen, from everything you're saying, right, you're talking about this race, it sounds like cars are going to be flying. There won't be tons of cautions. They'll just be moving. And there's a car that's been moving, and that's my boy Ryan Blaney. That car has been moving. I'm going with Ryan Blaney as my winner. He told me to. We got like Fords this week, it sounds like, because they're minus 180 also. So Vegas agrees. Give me my boy Ryan Blaney to get it done. One thing I like about him in DFS too, I mentioned this a lot whenever I do some NASCAR stuff, is he's at the 11 spot, right? So I also have the out of, if he gets in like second place, I get some positioning points too that come out of nowhere. Add some dominator points maybe he gets. So it gives me more outs, right? We talked about, I think I mentioned it to you, it's like a running back, right? I can catch the ball different ways. I can run it. I can do it. And I can get there to value in so many different ways. So that's Ryan Blaney for me. That's my guy.
That's why, I like, between him and Truex, I think you got to pick one of the two and, put your money on them. Because if you play both of them, I think you're just going to be hurting the edge that you could potentially get from them. Because, they're going to be popular. Not, uber chalk, but they're going to be popular. And, with the ownerships the way they are, if you don't, stick to some guns and face some people, you're going to end up being closer to field average than being able to get overweight on drivers. And, for whatever you said right there and what I said earlier, I like Blaney over Truex.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe I'll play both somehow, and I'll fade enough guys in the mid tier where I can make it work projected ownership wise. I don't know if I played both, because again, you do need some of them dominator points from them. But, it goes back to what I said earlier in the race, is the confusing part of this is fastest laps. Who knows? Maybe both of them have extremely fast cars and they get those fastest laps. Fastest laps are twice as much as what a lap led is. So, I like those fastest laps much more than the laps led. And it's just so hard to predict who's going to get those fastest laps. Yeah, well, we'll have to see. But listen, we should get on out of here. Be sure to check out Coop's playbook. He's got the tons of great info in there, guys. He also does his core plays for the NASCAR race. He'll be doing it for this one. I'm sure he'll be doing it for the next one as well. But we got to get on out of here, guys. Thanks a lot for joining me and Coop. Thanks a lot for joining me and Coop. We got to go. See you guys later.